Hello. Today we're going to be learning Likkutei Torah, Daf Lamed Zayin, and this is going to be finishing the Maimer Shlach Anashim, and then we're going to be beginning the Maimer V'yamru al Kol Das B'nei Yisrael. So the Maimer Shlach was discussing the idea of the Meraglim and why they didn't want to enter the land of Eretz Yisrael, and contrasting it with that of Yeshua and Kalev, and what their response was to the Meraglim, why they were okay with entering the land of Eretz Yisrael. So, what was explained very briefly was that the Meraglim were uncomfortable with the idea of bringing mitzvahs to a physical place, which was going to happen once they entered Eretz Yisrael, and that the Meraglim preferred that they remain in Eretz Yisrael, in the Midbar, and keep Judaism at an intellectual level. So we are now expanding on those themes. This whole the second ice of the Maimer is a segraim, is a parentheses. Where we're going to expand on a few of the themes of the Maimer and reiterate some of them. So the Maimer begins with the idea that the purpose of entering Eretz Yisrael is to conquer the 7 nations, and the 7 nations represent the 7 midas that are from Taihu, and that through mitzvahs maisias, through physical mitzvahs, we have the ability to draw down a revelation of God in a way that is able to positively affect each of those 7 midas, as opposed to in the desert. Even though there is a hamshacha, even though there is a drawing down of revelation, the revelation does not remains lamaila, and it remains in the kind of the innermost perspective of spirituality, without entering the more superficial perspective, which is the heichalos, which is the world, and ultimately is the world of Asiya, but the life in the midbar prevents it from entering that lowest realm, as we explained, that the purpose of us being in Asiya is precisely to do physical actions, but whereby we reveal God. Now the truth is that the nature of bringing of changing the physical world is that it requires a revelation from something far higher than the spiritual levels that we were talking about before. In other words, what we needed to draw down to be able to change Eretz Yisrael was going to come from a far higher place than the spiritual experience that the Meraglim were enjoying in the desert. It needs physical action, right? And particularly physical action, because physical action is lower than speech. Therefore, it's able to orchestrate this revelation from the far higher place, as we discussed in the fnim of the Maimer, in the previous ice of the Maimer, where the Alter Rebbe explained that a highest level of intellectual expression actually happens through hints and through analogies. Now, the mitzvahs maisias actually have the ability to draw down from the source of chachmei, from the source of chachma vatzilus, in a way that was impossible through the actual revelation of chachmei, the orchestrated revelation of chachmei that happens through the Torah, and only through mitzvahs maisias is the inner purpose and main focus of chachmei actually able to be revealed. And this is why we say that the somebody who says I have Torah but I don't have Gemilas Chasadim, it's as though they don't have Torah, because what it's saying is that a person who approaches Torah without the Maisa is missing the entire point. Now the system works like this. We know that Torah comes from Chachma, Raisa and Chachma Nafkas. That the speech of God, of the Torah, draws down a hashpa from chachmei, and that the revelation is then drawn into the state of Isis Hadibur, by which the world is created. So from the Asaras Hadibur we go to the Asar Maimaras, and this hamshacha requires chesed in order to make it happen. That even the samshacha of chachma is facilitated only through that of chesed of Atzilus, as we say, ki hani avaya isa chesed, because chesed has this ability to draw down chachma down into down here, and without this, chachma by itself would not be able to come down here in the same way. So we discover that even on high, the hamshacha of chachma ilah that happens through Isis Adibur requires the other midas. As we say about Yaakov, that Yaakov is the Isis Yibaka, because Yaakov, the only way for Yaakov to be able to, the only way for Chachma to be able to come down is through this bursting, this breaking that happens through Yaakov, that it facilitates the Chachma passing into midas and then passing subsequently into Dibur. And from all this, from this preface, we can now understand how mistaken the Meraglim were. Because when they said that we want to stick with Torah, which Torah is called, is at times called Midbar, they wanted to stay in this Midbar, but what they were missing was the final step of bringing the Torah into the Eretz. Because the Eretz is mitzvahs maisius, that even though they were willing to bring down a hamshach of chachmilah, they were missing the pnimius of chachmilah, which the pnimius of chachmilah can only happen through mitzvahs maisius, or it can only happen through eretz. And this is why we say, do not praise a wise man for his wisdom, that we only, the praise of a man is only the tzedakah that is done on earth. And what the pasuk is saying is, don't think that chachma alone is going to be able to bring down this giloi, but that it needs actual tzedakah, it needs actual maisas, the maisa mitzvahs. Now there's another perspective of this, there's another way to explain this, which has to do with Matan Torah. That the Meraglim experienced Matan Torah, and in experiencing Matan Torah, they were given the perspective that the whole Judaism is going to be about Limud Torah, and they didn't want to go to the land to the land of Israel. They didn't want to enter Eretz Yisrael because they didn't have a relationship with the Eibishter that had to do with mitzvahs maisius. Their whole relationship with Eibishter was Limud Torah, and this came to their big mistake. Because they couldn't imagine this new and different perspective of Kiyum Mitzvahs, and what they didn't realize was that the Limud Torah of the desert was actually going to be just a Hira Shah. It was actually going to be just for the moment of the Midbar, but that in fact the whole Judaism was going to be and is about Kiyum Mitzvahs, about Kiyum Mitzvahs Maisius B'davka. And with this we end the first Maimer of Shlach L'chan. Now the next mimer is quite similar. It's going to ask a lot of the same questions, but it's going to take somewhat of a different tack on as it progresses. So the mimer begins v'yamro kol das b'nei Yisrael lemar teva aretz ma'id ma'id. That so this is now when we're now looking at the report of Yoshua and Kalev, in which it says that the land is good, that the land is Taiv Ma'id Ma'id. So the first question that the Alter Rebbe asks is why this double lashon of Ma'id Ma'id, and the second question is that the land of Eretz Yisrael is described by them as being a land dripping with milk and honey, and the question that the Alter Rebbe is asking is that what is this praise of milk and honey? Why is that significant? So the first thing that we're going to do is talk about the Meraglim. And who they were, and why they didn't want to enter the land. So it says in the Eitz Chaim, the Pirush, the way that it's explained in the Eitz Chaim is that the Malachim had their shirish from Machshava, and it links to Leah, and that they were from the Dar Midbar, which Dar Midbar is called the Dardeya, and that they didn't know how, and they didn't want to go from this intellectual perspective, the Leah perspective, the Dea perspective, to the perspective of to enter the land of Eretz Yisrael, go from Machshava to Dibur, which Dibur is Eretz Yisrael and Dibur is Rachel. So we got to understand what this, right? How these Kabbalistic metaphors are going to give us a practical explanation. And so to understand that, we have to understand how that we have to highlight the fact that Eretz Yisrael is all about mitzvahs ma'asiyos. That the idea of being in Eretz Yisrael is specifically to do mitzvahs, right? To build the base of Mikdash and to do all the to do so many of the other mitzvahs, to have this idea of right. So and now when in Torah, an enormous focus of Torah is, and perhaps the primary focus of Torah is the idea of separating between tahar and tameh, which in essence is the idea of birurim, of refining and sifting through and identifying that which is good from that which is bad. And the good that we're trying to get is, of course, that which came from Shviras HaKelim, that the Ramach Nicotzus of Tohu that fell down into Neiga, and we're Nislabish in Neiga, and we have this current mixture of Tohu and Ra, and our focus is the Aliyah, that the purpose of the Torah mitzvahs is to lift up these sparks, and the beginning of that avodah is getting rid of evil, and through pushing away the bad, we then have the opportunity to lift up the good, to lift up these sparks, and to return them to their source. And this is the mitzvahs aseh. So the quintessential paradigm of Judaism is that we begin with mitzvahs aseh. We begin with getting rid of the evil, and through that, through the aseh, we then, that leads us to the mitzvahs aseh, to the asiyah, to the action, and in the action we have the ability to actually lift up and extract the good. And this is al derech mashal, to talk about actual physical mitzvahs. The mitzvahs that are cited are those of esrog and of wool. That when we do these mitzvahs, we are extracting the good from these physical objects, and in doing so, we are drawing down Arin Seif into these objects, and we are raising these objects up to become good, by in that when we draw down Arin Seif, we are also extracting and absorbing the nictocis that are within these physical objects towards good. Now, the only way that we can successfully do that is if we begin by removing the evil, and the idea of removing the evil is the idea of making these objects, these items, kelim for Arin Seif. And this happens, and so that subsequently we can then do a mitzvah, and in that mitzvah we can actually bring down a gilei elokus, and this is going to cause this hiskalos, in which the physical objects can be consumed within elokus. And this is the reason for the minusha of mitzvahs, for the dikdukim of mitzvahs, the details of mitzvahs, that the esrog has to be exactly this way, and if it's missing one of those details, it's puzzle. And the tzitzis, if they're missing a string, they're puzzle. That the mitzvahs, each mitzvah needs to be optimally designed to be mamshech elokos, and it's our job to remove any of the things that might block the elokos from coming down. And this is the birur, this is the refinement in which we are refining physical objects to make them capable of receiving hamshachas ha'ar, and in that hamshachas ha'ar it's going to extract the spark. But despite all this, it's still difficult to understand how exactly it is that a human being is capable of bringing down Arin Seif into the world, and how it is that we are able to cause a unity between the physical matter, physical objects, and an elokus, and that will be we will explain that momentarily. So to understand that, we have to return to this Zayhar. The famous Zayar Kadas Kafi Sitra Achar Saliki Kar the Kuchabrichu Kul Ha'amen. So that through us doing a skafia, through us pushing aside Sitra Achra, this causes the the revelation, the glory of the Eibishter to be revealed in all the worlds. So to begin, we're going to talk about two different types of revelation, and those are Igul and Yesher, which are correspondent to Nefesh and Ruach. So the difference between the two of them, the essential difference is that Igulim are Iris in which all the different Iris within them are Behiskalos, and that they are equally concealed in a way that there is no division in the eagle state, and for that reason they're called Igulim, because an eagle is perfectly circular, and there's no division, there's no different points. Yesher is all about revelation, and it's a gilui of R that is specifically broken up into parts and into parts of parts and into increasingly more divided increasingly more divided parts. So the analogy for this would be like the Ila that is within the Ulul, in which where we can clearly trace one from the other. And the Alter Rebbe is going to explain this through a very particular analogy. He says that when a teacher tries to teach a student, the first thing he has to do is lower his knowledge and contract his knowledge in a way that will appeal to the level of the student's understanding. And when he gives over information, he needs to convey that information precisely from the perspective of the student, which means that that from the mashpia's perspective, he has to see the student's entire knowledge as being one whole. And when he gives the hashpa, when he gives this idea over to the student, it takes the form, a similar makif form, that even after it enters the idea, the knowledge of the student, it's still in this form of makif, in the sense that the student doesn't truly understand it, but that the student that the ideas conveyed by the teacher are giving the student a sense, are giving the student a makif, where the student has a general awareness of the concept that he has been taught. The lesson was delivered to the student in a purely makif way, where he was presented with the whole thing and it's surrounding him. Now, after the student begins to process the idea and begins to plumb the depths of the idea that he was taught, it's only possible when the student begins to dissect this idea and to break up this idea into each part. Because when he originally receives it, he receives it without his chalkos. It's all the ideas are conveyed as one, and the entire idea is in this makif way. But after he meditates on it, and after he breaks it up and he digests it according to his perspective, he turns this overarching concept into a focused and individual thought. In other words, he turns it from a gulim to yesher. He turns it from an encompassing thought that he only understands peripherally to a thought that he understands in each particular detail with all the minutiae. And this is the analogy of Igul and Yesher. And this is also why a gulim and the Igul and Yesher are called the Nefesh and Ruach, because the appreciation of that level is higher than Nefesh. And this is analogous to the Meichen de Katnas leading to the Meichen de Gadlus. Now, in a spiritual sense, the Igulim and Yesher are the eagle are higher quality iris, right? Is the higher level of R, which is drawn down from the Eibishter, but when it's expressed, it's not expressed in a true Gilei way, but it's in fact in a way of Helem, in that eagle is expressed, when the R takes an eagle form, it includes within it, without any divisions, without any minutia, all the details, all the chachma, bina, and das, all the different spheres are all combined and all contracted into this one form of expression. And therefore it's not described as being a revelation, but is described as actually being a concealment. Whereas in a yesher state, each of the spheres begin to divide, and the spheres take this divided form in which they are able to express each sphere according to its form. And so even when we find hiskalos, even when the spheres begin to combine, they retain their individual identity. And this formula of the eagle and yesher exists at every level. It's from the levels higher than Atzilus into Atzilus, and there's the Esther spheres there's the Esther spheres the Agulim all the way down to Asiya, and the Esther spheres the Yesher of Asiya, and they maintain this pattern that the Agulim are the Iris when they are concealed, and the Agulim are the Iris when they are combined with one another without any kind of division, and from this it comes all the Helam. Right, this idea of unity without division is what allows there to be this concealed chayos that comes all the way down to our world, that where we have living beings that are given life indiscriminately, and in a way that they are completely unaware of the source of their life. And that comes from the state of eagle. And this is what it says in Eitz Chaim, that there are heichalos of ava and yira, and there's heichalos of ratzon. That the general idea of a heichal is something which conceals and over the R that is within it, and that the R does not get revealed as it is itself, but rather it gets revealed according to the needs of the nivra, according to the needs of the thing that has to perceive it. And so in order for there to be an ahava, or that is limited, so that the nivraim can so that there can be nivraim of ahava like malach michal, and there can be yira that is limited, so there can be nivraim of yira like Gavriel. This requires the Arein Seif, which is not limited, to be subsequently put in through a tzimtzum, through a halama R. And this tzimtzum of R creates through it limited ahava and limited spheres, which is why it's called the heichel of ahava, and so too this is why we have the heichel of ratzon. Right, these heichalas, which is is another word for the kelim, are made by this helam. And so the kelim have this ability of being magbil and the R, and of hiding the light, and producing and allowing only a glimmer of this light to come out, which is what allows lower beings and ultimately independent beings to be produced, and the source for all this is from the igulim. From this first point of concealment, this complete unity of igulim, this later produces the individual beings. Now, given the fact that these concealments are obviously by divine plan, because these concealments are meant to cause the tzimtzum, which ultimately makes the independent beings, but nevertheless through these many contractions, through this pattern of igulim and through this pattern of helem, ultimately you have Siyah Hagashmi, you have the physical earth, which is in the form of this eagle, right? All the way down to the actual physical globe, which is of course in the shape of a circle. From these many levels of ishtalshalos, and from this helem, you can ultimately have the actual world, which is the Eilam Alashan Helem. But the source of all this is Igulim, right? That in which the R is concealed and not in a state of revelation, and this allows there to be first Ilus, in which the Kalim hide over the R, and then ultimately this is nishtalshel through many layers of tzimtzumim for there to be a world in which there's actual yesh and devarim nifradim.